I'm Natalie Kenway, Global Head of ESG Insight at ESG Clarity, and welcome to our brand new video series, Best Behaviour. This is an initiative brought to you by B Corp companies and ESG Clarity to discuss better governance. Over the next few months, as we count down to COP27 in November, the team here at ESG Clarity will be chatting with senior management of financial services certified as B Corp. These are companies that balance profit with people and planet and meet the highest standards of social and environmental performance. The initiative came about when EQ Investors, a B Corp company itself, got in touch with us on the back of Bond Hill's campaign for better governance. So last year at COP26, B Corp's companies issued a call to action to financial services to implement tighter and deeper corporate governance frameworks. So this all tied together quite nicely and a new working relationship was formed. We share the ambition of encouraging the investment management industry to look inwardly and consider how it can improve its own governance. We will bring you these video interviews on the Campaign for Better Governance newsletters and on the ESG Clarity website, so be sure to look out for those. So to kick off our very first interview, I'm delighted to be chatting with George Latham, Managing Partner at WHEB Asset Management. Thanks so much for your time, George.
Hi, good to see you.
ESG Clarity covered this call to action at COP26 from a number of B Corp businesses for tighter and deeper corporate governance frameworks within the financial industry. Within this, I've seen references to articles of incorporation, articles of association. What are these and why do they matter?
So this is the basic corporate form. It's the legal documents that govern how we're organised and how we're set up as a business. And actually, to add another name to your list of jargon, because WHEB Asset Management is a partnership, we actually have a deed. We have a deed of incorporation, which governs how we operate and how we're governed and our purpose as a business.
Fantastic. That makes it a lot clearer for me. Thank you. And the other thing I wanted to ask, and I will be careful how I say this because I'm going to fumble, what's shareholder-centrism and when did it become so dominant in our economic framework? So
shareholder-centrism is often a phrase or an idea that people date back to the 1970s and the work of Milton Friedman, who said something along the lines of, and I'll paraphrase, that the sole purpose of a corporation, the sole purpose of a business is to make profit for its shareholders within all means that are legally allowable. And so that creates quite a narrowly based framework for within which corporations exist and within which management teams make decisions, because the focus of all those decisions that a management are making is how do we make more money for our shareholders. It was then taken on, it was made very popular by Jack Welch at GE, who was the architect of what was known as shareholder value, which is a very popular idea in the 90s. So throughout the sort of late 70s, 80s and 90s, then this idea and the notion of the focus on shareholder value of basically the object of a business is to make money for its shareholders, and that's its responsibility on managers, became very dominant. Particularly in the kind of Anglo-Saxon, in the US and particularly in the UK as well. And right up until very recently, where the Business Roundtable, big well-known body of chief executives in the US, sort of somewhat went against that notion by saying, actually, we should start to think about how we create value for all of our stakeholders, our customers, our employees, the environment, civil society. So how do we create value for all those stakeholders as a route through to ultimately creating shareholder value, as opposed to shareholder value being the narrow aim on its own.
Therefore, there are sort of direct and indirect limitations of shareholder-centrism. What are those?
The limitations of shareholder-centrism are many, but I think they can be divided into two, really. One is that I think it drives quite a short-termist view of how businesses are run. Businesses are held to account purely on the basis of the value they create for shareholders in a short-term time horizon or in every time horizon. And that means that the management teams are sometimes encouraged to forgo investments in the business that might make the business more valuable in the long term in order to extract profit for shareholders in the short term. And I think that has become a real problem over many years, if not decades. And the second thing is that, and which derives from that, is that it really drives the notion that the other stakeholders in the business, which are the employees, your customers and your clients, the environment and natural capital, civil society and communities, are the other stakeholders in your business. But the idea of shareholder centrism can drive the notion that those other stakeholders are there to be exploited, or are resources that we should extract the most we can from in order to create value for shareholders, as opposed to the idea of stakeholder capitalism or stakeholder centrism, which is about how we invest in those different stakeholders in the business. So how we invest in our employees, how we invest in our clients, or how we create value for our customers and our clients, how we create value for the environment or invest in the environment, in order, on the back of that notion of investing, ultimately that will, if we create more value, that will ultimately drive value for shareholders.
Okay, thank you. And what does, just to end with, what does better governance look like at WHEB Asset Management? And you're part of this call to action. How would you like to see the financial industry change?
Well, I think it's summarized very nicely by Professor Alex Edmonds in his book, Grow the Pie, that we shouldn't think about a tussle between stakeholders as something that one stakeholder gives up and is the only way that another stakeholder benefits, that we're not in opposition to each other. We should think about how we invest in our business and how we create value for all of the stakeholders in our business. And that's ultimately how we'll create more value for our shareholders in the long run. We'll create more valuable businesses. And by putting that concept of stakeholder value at the core of our corporate form, in our articles of association or in our partnership deeds, that creates a focus for management teams to think about how we're creating value, how we're having a positive impact as a business, and how we're investing in the different stakeholders. And ultimately that will lead to more successful outcomes for business as a whole.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. What a great way to kick off this series. Thanks again for your time.